Hi, everybody.
Hi. So I'm here to introduce composer and performer Lainie Fefferman, who is here from. Where are you actually located right now?
Right now, I'm in my family home in the basement. I'm right next to photo albums and old LP records. That's where I am.
Okay, live
Princeton, New
from
Jersey.
the basement in
Yeah.
Princeton, New Jersey, which sounds like the name of a venue that we might have performed at some point in the past. So,
It's a
a little
venue I'm
background.
performing in.
Oh, yeah, there you go, but I'm not.
That's right.
Yeah, so part of the reason I invited Lainie to come talk to us is we have a long history together. We've been friends for 19 years. We met right at the beginning of freshman year of college through a composers group that was at some point renamed Ensemble Igigi, although it almost got named Molto Hippo. I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember that.
Yeah, and we've just kind of like continued to collaborate and know each other through the years. At some point in our early 20s, we put on a concert at the Tenry Cultural Institute in New York, along with who else was involved in that? Jody Redditch and Timo Andres, I think.
Andres, Jen
Which,
Stock.
Yeah, and you were already
Caroline
living.
Shaw. Caroline Shaw is the first time I met her. She was playing viola on my
Oh,
piano
I didn't
concerto.
make that connection. So there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, And for me, that was, I think, the first time I had my music played in a non academic setting. And so, for all of you students out there, if you have not done that yet, I highly recommend it once this pandemic is over. There's plenty of good venues around here, Tempe Center for the Arts, and so on. Um, then, some years later, Lainie was in a vocal trio called Celestial Mechanics, three women's voices who performed wearing themed coveralls. And I wrote a piece for them, which we performed at a tiny little venue called Monkey Town that doesn't exist anymore. Lainie later went on with her partner Yasha Narveson, also a composer, to found a venue called Exapno, which is based on a joke made by Harpo Marx, the name Exapno.
You know everything about me.
I know everything about you. Yeah. If you spell out Harpo Marx in Cyrillic characters and pretend it's English, it looks like Exapno map case. I did a show there called Soapbox with Elliot Cole and the departed Matt Marks, a brilliant guy who is no longer with us. And so now Lainie's gonna tell you about more of her work now that I've told you some random bits and pieces about things I did for no apparent reason.
Well, that's maybe the most personal and lovely intro I've ever gotten. So thanks. Yeah, my name is Lainie Fefferman. I am a composer and you'll see kind of a performer. And I am an organizer of new music kind of events and groups and things. And I'm a professor. I teach at Stevens Institute of Technology in Hoboken, New Jersey, which is mostly famous for being an engineering school, but there's a large and growing number of folks who come to study music and technology, and I love them. They are awesome. And I am, like you, in the middle of a pandemic, trying to figure out what it means to be a productive musician. Yeah, I'm figuring it out. I don't have any answers right now. I have lots of questions, but I'm excited for figuring out a practice that I really find fulfilling, and in that practice, sharing music with other people live. So this is amazing. This will be my first live over Zoom performance since all this started. I've had little projects and bits and bobs, but I haven't been performing. So this is really, really exciting for me. And thank you to Alex and Lauren and just all the ASU faculty for being interested in what I do, asking me here. Okay, so I thought about the title of this talk that I'm going to give you and all that involves and entails, and I made a little slideshow. Maybe I will share it with you. One moment. And it's a complicated topic, especially right now, to talk about religious music. Just the country is so, I'd say, tense and intense about religion. it's kind of it's an important interest of mine to have religious music be um, discussed and appreciated and not, oh, you know what? I'm going to come back to the statement after I've given you a talk because I'm going to want to refer to lots of things. So here we go.
And before you get started, we should also
Yeah.
mention that to tell everybody watching or everybody in the Zoom room that Lainie is happy to take comments and questions in the middle of the talk. Just feel free to chime in anytime something occurs to you and create a dialogue.
Yeah, please do. I'd much rather have a conversation than give you a lecture. So feel free to put it in the chat. I have to get the chat window open. Let me do that. Unmute, poke me, yell, anything. I'd much rather have a conversation than talk at you. Okay, but yeah, my talk is called Composing Jewish. It really should be Composing Jewish and Female because I got questions a lot in the last, oh gosh, 15 or so years about being a Jewish composer and writing Jewish music. And I still probably don't have amazing answers for what that means, but I'm enjoying the process of thinking about what it means. And when people ask me questions, having, more developed and more provocative answers for them about what that means. There's no dearth of Jewish composers out there. We're a dime a dozen, but I feel like everyone's got a little bit of a different take what it means to write Jewish music, to make Jewish music, to be a Jewish maker of music. So, but here's my slide. What is Jewish music? This is a little constellation of images and words particular to me. When I think about Jewish music, I'm going to use the word idiosyncratic a billion times. My idiosyncratic take on what Jewish music is. I grew up in this very house in Princeton, New Jersey. I grew up to an academic, non-practicing family of Jews who brought a lot of culture from North American Jewry into the house and brought a lot of culture from Israel into the house. And then when I got to high school, I got to college, I got really into the downtown, I'd say avant-garde, but now it feels weird to call Bang on a Can avant-garde, but that sort of downtowny New York, gritty rock and roll and folk music loving contemporary notated music culture. So I just put all of these pictures up there. I don't know if they resonate with any of you, but all of these have a different facet to me of what it means to be Jewish music. So at the very top, there's that Hebrew with those diacritical marks. That's probably the most safely non-controversial thing to claim as Jewish music because that is literally Torah chanting instructions. So the letters that you see, those big blocky letters, that's actual Hebrew alphabet. But then you see those little marks, there's a little like the little right angle, and then there's the little, I don't know, horseshoe with a little handle or whatever, and the two little scoopies. All of those are chant markings, cantillation markings. That's for the recitation of Torah, the singing of Torah in the temple itself. So that is, if you're going to practice the religion of Judaism, you're going to engage at some point with that music. There's a couple congregations that don't do that anymore, but most Reformed, conservative, Orthodox, Reconstructionist, just any Jewish service I've ever been to, they kind of engage with that. So that's my first answer to folks when they go, "What is Jewish music?" I go, "That." I got super into that. I actually didn't do my bat mitzvah. I actually don't really have a sense. Could we do kind of, this is fun for me, total self-identification, but just who of you kind of has some either Jewish background or just like, oh, Jewish stuff. I sort of know Jewish stuff, just so I know how much to explain. Could you give a thumbs up maybe or a raise hand or a something? Okay. Okay, not a lot, not a lot. This is gonna be fun. Okay, so how deep? I could go all night. So I got really into this as a musician because these chant markings get put on the word where in Hebrew it receives the most stress, but they themselves are multi-note chant indications. So like, uh, uh, let's see, mapach is the name of one of those chant tunes. A mapach is a thing that you can put on a word, but depending where you put it on the word, like where is it in this one? This one, it's on the word mapach. So that doesn't help me, but I'll do it on like Alex Temple. If I put it on the ah of Alex Temple, it'd be like Alex Temple. I'll have to do the whole chant on that syllable. But if the mapach goes like on the te of Alex Temple, it would be Alex Temple, which would make sense because my stress when I say Alex Temple, and Alex Temple for me is forever and always a two name human. So Alex Temple gets the te emphasized. So you would put that chant marking on that thing. Alex Temple would be a mapach on that word. So I just got so in love with that system of text setting because text setting is hard for me.
I ended up with the right last name for that.
Yeah. You're the perfect example, my friend. So, right. So I just got really into that and I thought about that a lot in text setting, that I'd get these tunes and instead of setting every syllable to every note, really thinking about the tunes that are important to me and then using the stresses of whatever language I'm setting, usually English, as having that tune fit with that stress of the word, which is, I think, something a lot of folks do intuitively, but I had a super fun time just thinking about very explicitly doing that. I won't go into all these other things. I will just point you to a moment of, I Googled Tempe, Arizona Jewish music, and I got this thing, Oi Songs. If you look in that corner, it's an organization that really looks pretty impressive. They're just committed to having a giant library of MP3s of Jewish music. And they have a really, I thought it was interesting for this talk, that they have an exceptionally broad definition of what Jewish music is. There's music that has nothing to do with religion or culture, but is made by Jewish people. There's music that is liturgical, that is for the purpose of creating a religious ceremony. And then there was just stuff that kind of resonated with American Jewish classic stuff, like the dreidel, dreidel, dreidel song, or yeah, you get the point. So whether or not you have a relationship to Judaism or Jewish music, maybe you could think about this for Christianity and Christian music, or Islam and Muslim music. Islam is interesting because there's a lot of taboos surrounding music. Christianity is even richer than Judaism because so much music was composed for the service because it's so malleable. And I should point out that I've written a bunch of Christian sacred music and I love it. And really, our mutual friend, David Hughes, Alex Temples and my mutual friend, David Hughes, asked me to write some mass movements. And as you know, a practicing Catholic to a Jew, that was one of our favorite collaborations. So I have a great time with just thinking about religious music in general. So that's that slide. Any questions with that? Actually, yeah, let me go. Ooh, any questions about that?
Could you name some of the other people that are here?
That are on the slide? Sure. There's Leonard Cohen. I'm a big Leonard Cohen fan. He's the one just to the left of religious, question mark. You know, it's funny. I'd always talk about him as Jewish music very, very soon in the discussion. And I would sometimes get challenged on that. And he's got such a wide fan base and whatever. But I can't help it. He's still just, for me, for my personal library of what Jewish music is, he's a huge figure. The way he approaches not just subject matter, but it's like commentary. Like I think of his lyrics, his poetry as really being religious commentary a lot of the time. There's overt stuff like Story of Isaac, which if you haven't heard it, I think is one of the most moving pieces of religious music that I've heard. But there's also, you know, Suzanne, like any song. Then We Take Berlin, like any of his songs, just the way the text rolls out. There's something I think really informed by the fact that he was quite a Jewish scholar and the way that he treats narrative. Lauren just put Who by Fire. Yeah, it's. I think to a lot of the folks who identify as Jews in my circles, we cite him as a touchstone. So there's Leonard Cohen. Then below him, there's you know, there's, I forget even who it was. I just thought that was so iconic for just klezmer music. Klezmer music. It's Eastern European. It's jumpy, jumpy for weddings, for happy times, for you know, the outdoor picnic at my synagogue. It's just happy, bouncy. These days, it's very jazz inflected for especially North American Jews who perform klezmer. It's very kind of 40s big band jazz inflected, but it's this tradition that kind of comes out of 19th century Eastern Europe. And I love it. It's great. And I think it's what a lot of people, you know, Fiddler on the Roofy music is that. It's that. And then in the middle there, it's Naomi Shemer, Jerusalem of Gold. I couldn't even name you one other song sung by Naomi Shemer, but it's, again, I think if you talk to a lot of Jews about my age or uh, probably older, maybe not younger, it was just a fixture in the house, is this woman, this Israeli singer, singing this one song, Jerusalem of Gold. And then there's Bang on a Can. So those three intense looking faces are David Lang, Michael Gordon, Julie Wolfe, and they're all Jews, and their relationship to Judaism is intense. It's varied, and if we had an hour to talk about it, I'd love to talk to you about my thoughts on their Judaism, which is maybe too hearsay-ish, but I like how they've approached Jewish topics in their music. And how they just act as Jews in the world. I'm really into it. Oi songs I told you about. And then the last thing is there's a little shofar. To the left of historical, there's that curly Q thing. That's a ram's horn, or most of them are ram's horns, and it's got a liturgical function that I'm going to talk about in, I don't know, 5-10 minutes. But um, that is one of the most iconic single sounds in my head for what Jewish music is this super, super, super loud, often really squeaky and squawky horn blast that happens a couple times a year in the temple. And I love it. And I wrote a piece about it because I love it so much. Yeah, good question. Oh, and then, I have the worker circle. It's being covered by actually Lauren's face right now on my screen. But to the right of community minded, my my family came to America. One side was great grandparents, and the other side was grandparents' generation came to America. The great grandparents one, when they came, they were really, really active in what was then called the Workmen's Circle. I love that they've changed their name. I think it was just last year to the Workers' Circle because they're great and they have good gender politics. But they have a lot of labor songs. They have songs that you'd probably think of as very Pete Seegery. But again, my family was very active in them, and a great uncle of mine was a composer for them. And I have a bunch of songs in my house, sheet music of songs in my house of communist labor songs written in Yiddish. So it's all, in Yiddish is the language of most of the Jews that came from Eastern Europe, came to the States. It's written in Hebrew characters. So until I learned Hebrew in my 20s, I just had this book where I could read the music, but I had no idea what it was saying or what it was doing. And it was really fun in my 20s to go back and go, oh, this is just like Kami Pinko Glorious Workman songs. I don't know. I loved it. It was really great. So I think of activism and socialism and like Pete Seeger style Yiddish songs as part of Jewish music too, for me. So I fit somewhere in this constellation. I'll try to explain that a little better. I'm going to blow past this slide because this is a big, hard conversation, and there are people much smarter than me talking about this. But I'll just say again that my attitude toward what feminist music is so highly idiosyncratic. That's what I came to, because I have a lot of people in my life who talk about feminism and women in music in really smart ways. And I kept thinking like, oh, where do I fit? Where do I fit in all this? Especially I was writing the piece I'm going to perform for you, 2016, leading up to that presidential election. And I was talking a lot with women and colleagues about what it means to be a feminist musician, a feminist composer. And I just kind of thought like, oh, well, when I think of just feminist music, who do I think of? So I'm going to blow past the slide, but I'll just say I sat down to prepare this talk and I let my mind roam free for 3 minutes. And these are the faces I came up with. So it's Pauline Oliveros, Nina Simone, Peggy Seeger, Janelle Monáe, and down there is Helen Reddy, the I Am Woman song, which I get made fun of a lot by people for how much I love that song, but I tear up at that song. I really love it. But these women have so little in common. I didn't take a lot of time to sweat out what they had in common because I've really come to this conclusion. Is this my next slide? I think it's my next slide. Yeah, you decide. You decide what feminist music is. I'm going to make music that makes me feel great. And I consider that a feminist act. I'm not making music for anyone else's expectations. I'm not trying to prove anything to anyone else. I can talk about my gender identity or my religious identity or my national identity or my familial identity. And I'm doing it for me. And I think I'm excited about other people's work as well. That is so personal that you just get the sense they're doing it for themselves, particular to their experience. And I love that about, Lauren's music and Alex Temple's music and I feel feminist and I feel Jewish when I make music that makes me feel good as a Jew and as a woman. And that doesn't sound very big or radical, but that was really freeing for me once I realized that that was my definition, because I didn't need to have a checkbox like, oh, this is Jewish music because check, 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 check. Now I can be in the club. Or I make feminist music because check, 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 check. I could just go, oh, it makes me feel powerful and awesome. Check. That's my one checkbox. Yeah, I mean, when maybe we'll leave a good amount of time to talk about that. I'd be curious other people's reactions to that, because I've gotten very varied reactions. I've gotten reactions from folks who are much more overtly political in their music than I am, being a little sad about that because they feel like it loses the specificity and the charge to action that politically charged music can have. But I've also had people kind of like get excited, like, oh, is that all you need? Then I make feminist music. That's so exciting. And I, just who I am, I'm excited for the tent to be as big as possible. If people want to say they're making feminist art, I want them to feel great about that. Of course, there's boundaries and exceptions, but I think that's an exciting place to be when people are making music to please their own identity and place in the world. Okay. So let's listen to some music. I should do a time check. It is 7 o'clock. Okay. So I'm going to play you some music now with little bits of introduction. I'm not going to play this whole piece. This is a 10-minute monster that I wrote for the amazing bagpiper Matthew Welch, who, if you've never listened to contemporary bagpipe music, he's the guy. I met him a couple years before I wrote this piece, and this is one of the first pieces where I cornered him and said, Matt Welch, I am writing you a piece. I don't really care what you want to do. I'm writing you a piece. I love what you do, and I love the bagpipes, and we're going to do this. And he was into it, thank God. And I was writing the piece for him right around Jewish New Year and Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement. So these are the, especially Yom Kippur, the big, big, big Super Bowl holidays of Judaism. And they're commemorated with the blast of the shofar, with this ram's horn. And I had the ram's horn in my ear, and I just thought, oh, there's such a dialogue between the loudest sound I've ever heard, piercing my heart, my Jewish heart, and hearing these bagpipes just scream out into my face. And I wanted to write a piece that had that same charge to it, that same emotional, religious charge. So in Jewish tradition, the shofar is really to just pierce through the heavens to get God to pay attention. Rosh Hashanah, the new year, is when God is going to write your name in the book of life or death. You really want to get in the book of life. That's a much better spot to be in. And the shofar is the thing that just gets a whole congregation together going, God, please write our name in the book of life for another year. We're really into that. So that's the piece that I wrote for Matt Welch. I said, bagpipes and electronics, blast forth and get all of us written in the book of life for another year. So I'm going to play you the beginning of that, and I'll probably let it go for about 5 minutes. So hunker down for a 5-minute blasty piece. You might want to, I'm so confused by Zoom audio. You might want to just be on the volume handle just for fun, just in case you want to change volumes. But this just came out on his album. If you're a bagpipe enthusiast, you get the inside joke. I don't get the inside joke so well, but there is a very old theory for Highland bagpipes called the Compliat theory for Highland pipes. So this is a new Compliat theory for Highland pipes. He wrote a book that accompanies the album talking about modern bagpipe practice. And I mean, I am mega honored to be on this album with him and Philip Glass and Anthony Braxton. And there's little old me. Tekiah is the call that the rabbi or the cantor makes to the shofar blower in the temple, calling for this particular kind of blast. So tekiah goes, brrr, and then a big tekiah Godola, goes like, brrr. So you'll hear both of those gestures in this piece. Can you hear?
No audio.
course, no audio. Of course, that's what's happening. Okay, one moment.
At the top of your screen, where you're sharing your screen, you should be able to share your computer sound.
Yeah, I should. I'm gonna stop sharing and reshare. That's just always my full. Here we go. I really checked the box. Really did. Here we go. One more time. Share computer sound. Doing the compliat. Here we go. Let's try it again. Give me a thumbs up if you hear it. Yes. Okay. See, now I want. One moment. I have to mute my other guy. This is very involved and professional, folks. You have no idea. So involved. Okay. Here we go. Let's refresh. I want this to happen right away. Okay. Give me a thumbs up if this goes well. Well, I really wanted to fade that out, but I couldn't quite see in this lighting enough to fade it out. Imagine a very tasteful fade. It's about 10 minutes of that. There are some surprises later on, but the whole conceit of the piece for folks maybe on the YouTube who couldn't see the chat, there's a fixed electronic static track that's comprised entirely of recordings that I had made of Matt just practicing traditional Highland ornamentation. I can't do it. I can't vocalize it, but you know what I mean. And then I just had a lot of fun using software to muck about with it to make a lot of noise. And then the drier track, the more in front track that you're hearing is what he performs live or in the studio, what he does with the bagpipe in the beginning. So I do treat it kind of like a call and response when sometimes the electronics is acting the way a cantor or a rabbi would in the temple, calling the Tekiah, and sometimes the pipes are the ones going Tekiah, and then blasting. Sometimes the electronics does the blasting, sometimes Matt does the blasting. But I play this for you because it's my most, again, just I talked about the clarity of Torah chanting is most clearly Jewish in my mind. This is my most clearly Jewish piece. I wrote it with the idea that it could be liturgically useful, that for well, specifically, I'm trying to get my rabbi to use it. She's not up for it yet, but I'm working hard because I think it would be really cool if when they went, okay, and now we're going to try and get God to open the book of life, you heard Matt Welch just belting out through our temple. So I'm trying to make that happen. Especially this year, the New Year fell on the Sabbath, and for Jews, for weird, archaic, nerdy rabbi reasons, you can't actually blow the shofar when the New Year falls on a Sabbath. The holiday moves around with our lunar calendar lunacy. So I pitched again, well, it's a commandment against blowing the shofar. A bagpipe isn't a shofar. We all want something really loud to happen. Can't we just do it? And she said, no, we can't do it. We waited for 2 days later and then had an awesome ram's horn. But yeah, yay bagpipes. Yay bagpipes. I love them so much. The sound just pierces my heart with joy every time I hear a bagpipe. Okay. Sorry, Lauren made a funny in the chat. Okay. Next piece. Here I am. So this piece, it is me setting biblical text. It is me doing that. So again, that is quite overtly Jewish, but it's not liturgical. This is not something that I think should be performed in place of the actual reading out of the scripture in a Jewish service. But I do think of this kind of in the tradition of oratorio, like Christian music has their like Bach and Handel and stuff, right? These oratorios, these sung bits of literal Bible text. So I was inspired to write this piece in kind of a critical mood because this is around when gay marriage was a real chargy question in the country. Please God, may it never be a chargy question again. I was just so angry because as a Jew, I kept hearing people quote bits of Leviticus as to why gay marriage shouldn't be legal because of the Bible. And I was like, have you read Leviticus? Have you read Leviticus? The stuff that you do, you're all every one of us is just burning in hell. I mean, there's no Jewish hell, but like every one of us is going down for the stuff that we do if you actually read all of Leviticus. So my inspiration for writing this piece was actually, that's it. I'm just giving you all the zaniest bits of Leviticus and I'm putting them right beside you will not lie with a man as you lie with a woman, and just have at it, folks. Listen to all of this stuff and see what you think. But that kind of got me on a project. That's one wacko bit. But then, you know, I just like the Bible a lot. I like it. It's interesting. It's rich. It feeds into so much current culture, whether you engage with it or not. It's there. I really love reading it. And I've just been thinking about different passages in it for so long. And again, I talked to Rabbi Julie Roth, who I adore. She's the rabbi at Princeton University, about some of these passages. And she always starts with the same phrase. Lainie, you're doing it again. You're picking that passage that we kind of go like we don't talk about it in school. We go, it's weird. We're not going to talk about it in rabbi school. And I love those bits because they're so weird. They're so weird. How has that filtered into our culture? How has that filtered into our consciousness? But then the example that I'm going to play you actually is a movement where I thought, just for a minute, I want pure joy. And I was like, oh, what's the joy? What's my most joyful bit of the Bible? And it's a weird pick, but it's at some point, Abraham is trying to bargain with God for how many righteous folks he's got to find in Sodom in order not to destroy it. I'm going to guess everyone kind of knows the Sodom thing, like, oh, they're evil and God destroys it, and the salt thing and whatever. But there's a moment when Abraham is literally bargaining with God over how many, come on, if I find 50 good guys, then you're not gonna get rid of Sodom, right? There's 50 good guys, and God's like, oh, okay, fine. If you can actually find 50 good guys, great. And then Abraham's like, well, sure, 50. But if 50 is okay, what about like 40 is good, right? And he just keeps going down and down. And I was like, Judaism, this is amazing. This is one person, one human person who's arguing with God, who's being like kind of cutting and hey, I'm going to argue with you. I'm going to be clever and I'm going to be crafty and I'm going to argue. Judaism, in my tradition and my love of Judaism, is argument. Lots of argument. So you'll hear some joy in this piece because I love arguing and argument. So how do I express joy? I write for my friends. These are my badass friends. I'll get the video up. Hopefully it'll play this time. This is Martha Kluver. I gave her the voice of God. If you've ever heard Martha Kluver sing, she's in lots of famous things. She's in Roomful of Teeth, I guess is her most famous group. She was in the Trinity Wall Street Choir for a while. She just has the voice of God. She's one of those sopranos that you just weep when she sings a scale. She's amazing. And over here is Caroline Shaw. She's singing alto along, and then here's Melissa Hughes. She's singing kind of mezzo-y, and the two of them together are the voice of Abraham. So the voice of Abraham switches back and forth between these two amazing singers, Caroline Shaw and Melissa Hughes, and Martha Kluver, the voice of God. The argument I turned into like a playful game. So you're going to hear it's kind of game-like music, and I give them kind of some percussion games to do. So yeah, I'll just leave it at that. And hopefully
Will you then wipe out the place and not forgive for the sake of the innocent 50 idiots? 40 if thou losest the body, shall not the trash of all the earth deal justly? And the Lord answered, if I will remain the sins of 50 innocent ones, I will forgive the whole place for their sake. And Abraham spoke, saying, here I venture to speak to my Lord, I who am but dust by measure. But if the 50 innocent love God, if you destroy the whole city for love of man. And the Lord answered, I will not destroy if I find fault in But Abraham spoke to the Lord again, and said, what if 40 would be found there? I will not do it for the sake of the 30. Let not my Lord be angry if I go. What if 30 should be found there? 40 if thou losest the such a thing. I will not do it if I am better. Again I venture to speak, my Lord. What if 20 should be found there? I will not destroy if I find better. Let not my Lord be angry if I speak one last time. But if 10 should be found there, I will not destroy for the sake of the 10.
and then they hold that note as they leave the theater. Composer note on that one, by the way, that took me the least time to write of anything I've ever done. I was writing this very intense, very charged music for these hard biblical passages, and I needed a break. I was like, oh, I'm going to do a joyful thing. I need a break. And then, like 3 hours, boom. It's my favorite movement in the whole thing. And it was so easy. I was just in my pajamas. I was like, oh, I need a break. So easy. So just because something comes quick and easy, I don't know, it might be your best little jewel of a thing. Let's see, we're a little tight on time, but I think I still do want to play you one other example of this piece, just because it's the Binding of Isaac story. I do think this is a really critical story for Jewish identity, for Christian identity, Muslim identity, this Abraham and Isaac story. And again, we're short on time. My guess is a lot of you know it. If you don't know it, it's the whole kind of God asks Abraham to sacrifice his son. Abraham's gonna do it. And then at the last minute, God sends an angel. Is like, actually, no, don't do it. There's like a sheep, a ram, I forget. Go kill that thing. And you know, so many of the people I put up on that What is Jewish Music slide have written music and people have made art about this for so many years. I had to take my turn, and I've kind of been writing songs about this particular story since college, since high school. I've been obsessed with this story, so this is kind of the culmination of lots and lots of work. I think I was going to play you a longer excerpt, but I'm tight on time. Forgive me while I scrub to a. No. Let's try. Yeah, okay. I'm going to have a shorter excerpt that I'm going to play you. But I'll just say I let my emotions really free up on this. I kind of turned off my brain because if I tried to intellectually set the emotions of this intensive story, I felt like I was going to go nuts. But I just kind of sat down and let notes flow as I was thinking about this story, and it turned into this very poignant, pained thing. And when I look back on it and kind of psychoanalyze myself, I think it's because I'm putting myself in the place of a parent deciding the sacrifice has to be made, and that seems to me more poignant than violent. So I have gotten kind of criticism for this because when you hear it, I'm curious what you think, but I think of it as sweet and poignant, which is weird for a story about a father about to kill his son. But anyway, let me play a little bit of it.
Not withheld your son, your favored one, from me. When Abraham looked up, his eye fell upon a ram, caught in the thicket by its horns. So Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering in place of his son. And Abraham named that site Adonai Yireh, where the present saying, on the mount of the Lord there is vision.
tasteful fade out. Imagine a tasteful fade out. So yeah, very different tone. But again, I think of it like an oratorio. It's a concert performance of biblical text. I think rather than play you more music, I'll just say this string quartet that's about to eat the rest of my life for, I don't know, 6 months. I'm doing an animated, there's a graphic novel called Market Day, which is about a Jewish rug maker in unspecified Eastern European country, kind of around turn of the century, right when he realizes industrialization is going to put him out of business and he needs to give up the art making that he loves in order to feed his child who's about to be born. That felt very prescient to me. When I first read that graphic novel, I was about to be leaving grad school, and I felt like, oh, this is about to be what I have to grapple with. Like, can I make a life earning my keep with music if I want to eat and, have a family and a house and a thing. Anyway, that's Jewish music to me too, because it's a very the graphic novel is written by James Sturm, and it feels like the stories that I was raised with by Eastern European Jews and American Jews, turn of the century. Isaac Bashevis Singer. It's very, very warm. It's very, very tragic, and all of the images are inspired by shtetl, like poor Jewish village of Eastern Europe. So there's a way in which this is also Jewish music that I am making. But this has nothing to do with biblical text. This has nothing to do with religious tradition. This is just purely cultural, that I identify so much with the tone of this story, and the images look so much like the images of my ancestors from Poland, that I feel like I'm really connecting with Judaism in that too. I'm not going to play it for you because I really want to hear from you. And I'm not going to tell you about this piece because I'm about to perform that piece. This piece, there's so much to talk about, but I will just say this is real different from all the other pieces. But this is the one that I think is the most feminist. So if you're interested in feminist art making, this is a piece for you. And yeah, stick around. I'm going to do a little set of this live, and we'll have a chat about the tragedies and the awesome power of women in the Hebrew Bible. But now I'd love to know if you have any questions or thoughts or anything for me. Well, I see some clappy hands. Thanks, clappy hands. I'll get the chat up.
Sure. So we'll open the floor for any questions and conversations.
You
can also just be stymied by my
I got
brilliance.
a question.
Yeah.
If nobody else does. Since we, especially since we are here with AME, could you talk a little more about just sort of in general your relationship to electronics in your work?
Yeah, sure. I'm kind of a latecomer to electronics. Really didn't, when we were buds in undergrad, I was doing basically nothing with electronics. And then, well, there were really two things. Then there was number one when I moved out on my own and I wasn't associated with a school or anything for the first time, and I didn't have funding or nothing. I just needed to be making music when I couldn't pay people or pay for things. And I had a laptop and I had GarageBand and a cheap little interface. So I just started making little doodles. Any just instruments I had in my apartment and any singing that I did little doodles, and I really liked making doodles. But I didn't think of that as like my music practice. But now when I look back on it, that was crucial. I had so much fun doing that. I think that's closer to what I do now than the, solo cello piece that I was perfecting. And then when I got to grad school, I went to Princeton for composition grad school, which was just like the biggest gift. I kind of won the lottery on that one because it's just like the kindest, loveliest people who just want to tell you how they do stuff and see if you want to do that stuff. So Dan Truman is really one of my favorite folks who works at Princeton, and he founded the Princeton Laptop Orchestra. And really just because I liked him, just because I thought he was such a cool professor, and I loved the sounds that he made he plays Norwegian hardanger fiddle, and he works with Irish step dancers, and he had a laptop orchestra. I was like, oh, I like those other things. I'll give laptop orchestra a try. And I just got into it for the people. I just thought, oh, these are I married one of them. Like, he's nice. I just really, really, really like electronic musicians. You know, we can be feisty or grumpy like anyone else, but just as a community, I love the vibe. We're all pretty comfy being vulnerable and sharing things with each other and talking about music in a deep way. By deep, I mean, I remember Paul Lansky, who was my advisor at Princeton, saying he got into electronic music because he got sick of writing acoustic music where after a concert, people would be like, nice job, Paul. That was great. And the culture was just zero feedback. And he's like, versus when I made electronic music, everyone would be talking to me for hours. We'd go to the bar and for hours and hours, we'd be talking about how you made that and how I can help you with this next thing. And maybe this is like the other project we should collect. And that's been my experience. I've been incredibly lucky to be in those communities. That's probably not everyone's experience, but that's been my experience. So these days, electronic music looks for me the most, the thing I do for most of the time is what you're going to see here. This solo practice that I have with like home built MIDI triggers, and I do everything in Reaper. Shout out to Reaper, the best digital audio workstation. They're all great. They're all fine. But like I make the example like guitars. Everyone has their favorite guitar. Like, oh, the Stratocaster from, I don't know, 1965. That's the only guitar. No, it's not. They all do the same thing. But you can have your favorite guitar that you just think is better than all the other guitars. That's me. So I work in Reaper. Oh, and I see from the chat, I've got some Reaper fans, some Reaper buddies. I also I bought it because it was cheap. I was on my own. I wasn't at an institution at the time. It was $60. You can actually kind of use it for free forever, but you should pay them the $60 because they're wonderful people. And I just hacked Reaper to bits, customizing it for all the stuff that I want and using it in ways that I don't think anyone quite intended when Reaper was made. And through my laptop orchestra stuff, I'm with Sideband, which is a sort of like the pro group. Laptop orchestra is mostly undergrads at Princeton, and they do sad things like graduate. And then this group that used to know your piece doesn't know your piece anymore. So we got a kind of a super group together of grad students and faculty who wanted to have kind of a pro touring laptop ensemble. So that's Sideband. We tour maybe once a year or something. But again, it's just kind of playing in the sandbox of what does it mean for 6 laptopists to make a piece together. So actually, if you're curious, a piece that I wrote for Sideband, actually another group, Ensemble Decipher, took it up and they're playing it at the NowNet conference tomorrow. It's a piece called Overshare for file sharing and live real-time signal making vocoding. I could explain that if you're curious, but it's, it's a nerdy bit of stuff. Let's see how fast I can explain it, how clearly. I get everyone to sing a drone and record the drone, and it feeds into a Max MSP patch that I've made. So Max MSP is my favorite coding environment. I've worked with other ones and they're great for their own stuff, but Max is just so easy and so robust and the community is so great. So I have everyone go like la into their Max patch and that's caught. And then everyone makes a loop out of their la. And then with the aggregate la that has been recorded, I use that as a signal and I get people to one by one record things they're worried about in the group. I should say I wrote this piece right after I got my current job and I was super scared of my new professoring job. So a lot of anxiety was in there. I just thought, oh, I just want to say all my anxiety out loud. So that's what this piece does. One by one, all the members of the group, and we go around to the audience and we record members of the audience saying what they're worried about. And then we just have a jam session vocoding recordings of what people are worried about onto the sung signal that we can then harmonize with really simple Max stuff. So you can kind of play little chordal progressions of what people are anxious about. So someone's like, I'm worried I left the stove on at home. And then you get like, I'm worried I left the stove on at home with these weird chords underneath and you can barely understand the text anymore. And so that piece is happening tomorrow. I am so curious what it's going to be like. When I wrote it, I didn't think it would be during a weird counting up the votes presidential election moment that it would be performed, but I'm guessing that's what a lot of the anxieties are going to be tomorrow. But yeah, that's a little smattering of the electronics I do. Really, it's up for grabs. Just anything cool that I hear about, I am up for trying it, for learning it. Thank goodness right now I have a job and a little bit of disposable income. I can buy bits and bobs, but mostly I just love doing free things. Oh, I see there's stuff. There's more stuff in the chat. My favorite musical period and favorite composer from each period. Holy cats. That's big. I'll just give you, I don't know about favorite. They're all my children, but I love early music, like medieval or pre-medieval, just early stuff like who? I mean, Perotin. For kicks, I used to sing Perotin with friends. I'm not much of a drinker, but it's fun as you drink more and more and you're singing Perotin more and more. It just gets really fun. But you know, I love the chanson, the like little troubadour-y. That's the best dance music, like the estampita and the frottole and all that. That's the banginest dance music. What else do I like? I like the music of my buddies. I like Lauren Sarah Hayes. I like Alex Temple. I like probably if I heard what you all are doing, I'd like that. I like what's going on right now. I really love synth pop. I've only gotten into it recently, but all the synth waves and the chill waves and I am into it. I call myself a recovering classical pianist, so I'm a little allergic to like high classical music right now, but that stuff is great too. I love all of it. Lauren has a question. Lauren, what's your?
I do. Hi, that was so beautiful. I'm really looking forward to your performance. Yeah, just okay, to go back to the point that you said you get questions on. I think, as you say, it's so empowering, you know, to say this is feminist, this is Jewish music. I think I've got one of those worked out in my head. The other one I'm still grappling with for myself. But on the other hand, you know, I think the way I think of feminism and musicking are things that we do. And you know, when we look at what you do community-wise and the way that you engage with community, and you do a lot of activism in many different fields within new music community, for example, I think that also comes into it as well. So I wonder, maybe speak a little bit to that, because, you know, you do a lot as well. So I think that it's empowering to say, yes, it's feminist music, but of course there's the problems with that. And I think that you do a lot as well. So maybe you can speak to that.
Sure. Well, maybe tell me if this is not what you meant, but do you mean like new music gathering and new music bake sale? And okay. So I like help. I don't even know how to describe it. Since like high school, I've enjoyed how do I say it? I want to be like, I enjoy being the yenta of music. I like just being like, oh, we should do a thing, and we should get this, we should do it at this venue. I'm like, oh, maybe we could have a concert. And I like that, the energy of making things happen. And I'll just talk about new music gathering because that's the main one I'm doing right now. But over the years, there's been different sort of projects. Like, Alex mentioned Exapno, the venue kind of community space, which only just closed its doors in COVID times, and I think we're not going to make it because we lost our beloved landlord. But I like making stuff happen. I really enjoy it. And new music gathering. I particularly like coming at music making when I stand a chance at giving voice to folks who haven't had the ridiculous privileges that I have had. I mean, I think I've even joked with Alex about this in the past, that there are so few privileges that exist in the world that I have not had. I mean, I am a white woman, educated family, all the and I'm in academia, and my family are all academicians, and I just feel like my life was handed to me on a silver platter, and I'm excited to think that I'm not the only one who can do the music that I do, that there are other people who have just given more resources and love and support, would also be interested in making the music that the folks around me are making. I'd say that energy goes the most, and I do think of that as a feminist energy. That's what's going into a lot of the work I do for this thing called New Music Gathering, which is something between a conference and a festival and a hang and a something, but for specifically kind of like, especially a lot of the music that comes is somehow got a relationship to either Euroclassical or academia, or if nothing else, written notated music. That's at this thing, New Music Gathering. We're actually trying to expand that and to get folks who are really outside that practice to come. But yeah, it's a yearly event. It was fully online this last year in 2020, but you should check it out. It's newmusicgathering.org. And it was me and Daniel Felsenfeld and Matt Marks, who started it the first year, and we were very quickly and thankfully joined by Mary Kiyumjian and Yasha Narvison. And the five of us we're just trying to make as much music happen as openly and vulnerably and excitingly together as possible. Yeah, and Lauren, if you're, I do feel like smarter people than me could express that more directly related to feminism, but I do just feel in my guts that that's a feminist act that I have, but it's just fun. I mean, I think of Matt Marks, actually, our beloved friend who passed, when he just went, it's more fun when more people are in on the game. Everything's more interesting and fun. So it's activism, but it's also just selfish that I just want to have more fun. And it's more fun when more different voices are making music. So I want to help that happen if I can. Yeah.
Another chat question there.
Another chat. Have I been, sorry, I'm old. Have I been
Have you been revisiting the earlier style of
Thank you.
one-person musical doodles you mentioned composing earlier in life during the pandemic? How has reflecting back on your musical growth changed what you're composing?
That's such a great question. Well, I'll say stick around for, 5-10 minutes, and you will hear what musical doodles have become in my life. These songs that I'm going to play for you are just an extension of musical doodles. It's so lo-fi. Some of them have been recorded by, I have those, it's lo-fi, but it's expensive. I bought the nice Bose in-ear headphones that have the microphone as well. Some of the vocals in these tracks, I was just taking a walk around my neighborhood and I recorded some vocals into that. Or I have it's a Rode IXY microphone that plugs into my phone and I can record, there's a magazine box outside of my apartment building. And I noticed that if you kick it, it's a really great like bass drum. So you'll hear me kicking my magazine thing. I'm like, I'll have a couple just synths and I'll go nuts in there. I do tons of vocoding onto the way we had that the sung tone for the laptop ensemble piece Overshare that's happening tomorrow, and then vocoded onto that. I've done tons of vocoding onto found sounds, which is my most favorite thing to do. It sounds weird. So there's a song that I'll play for you that is me singing and then vocoding it onto cars running past on the Gil Hodges Memorial Bridge that connects the body of Brooklyn to the Rockaways, the Rockaway Islands at the southern bit of Long Island. Found sounds are now kind of what I'm in it for. So basically everything that you're going to hear in the next, little bit that I play for you is like the little loops that I made. That's a separate question from the pandemic. Like all these songs, like the most recent of the songs, I think I finished in 2019 summer or something. I have been wildly unproductive during pandemic. I am sharing that with all my friends and colleagues and students because I think there was kind of a pressure to go, oh, I'm a musician and now I have all this time because it's pandemic and I'm at home. I should get out my album and write my orchestra piece and, record my band and woo. That would be great if I were doing that. But, my partner got COVID and my family's health has been rough and my mental health was terrible and I have made so little. I've made barely anything. And the stuff that I did make was because I had to make it because I owed it to other people. But I think I'm just weirdly, because it's not like everything's suddenly great, but I think I'm just starting to get the itch to make stuff again. I got great advice from a friend to make some remixes and the pressure's kind of off a bit. I have to read a comment in the chat. As they say, I just saw King Crimson, I have to read it. If you come out of this pandemic listening to, I don't know, ELO and not King Crimson.
Electric Light Orchestra.
Oh, Electric Light Orchestra and not King Crimson. You never lacked time, 1981. You just lacked discipline, 1981. Well, that's adorable. But yeah, I'm hopeful that we will all, make things when we feel like making things, and that it'll be fun and joyful and celebratory, but no one feels super pressured to make things. My friend Mary Kiyumjian, who's an amazing writer, wrote about feeling unproductive at the beginning of pandemic and how she was getting a lot of pressure to make things. So I'd check out her piece. If you just feel like you need a buddy and not being productive during pandemic, Mary Kunjian's essay can be your buddy. I'm your buddy. I'm trying, but it's weird. I sit down and nothing comes out. Not a thing. But remixes will save me. Will save me. Um, I might take a quick break and then come back and play you my thingy doos. Is that good with people?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go like throw water on my face and eat a ginger candy or something.
For sure, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we might lose a few people since we're past the normal official boundaries of these talks, but I hope some of you can stick around and hear this performance because it's gonna be good.
If anyone has any questions for me and you've got to go or anything, you can pop them in the chat. I'll tell Alex, I'll tell Lauren, or, I always like to say I'm the only Lainie Fefferman in the world. I'm pretty sure of that. I'm very findable. Send me an email. Yeah, I love chatting about all this stuff. So if you have a question, a comment, if you just want to play me a track, please, please. Okay, I'm gonna go get a candy. I'll be right back. Thank you, everybody. This was fun. I'll be right back. Hold on, I forgot my glasses. All right. Hi. Um, so kind of what I was thinking is we'd have it, this is sort of tiny desk style and extremely informal. So I'll tell you a little bit about what I'm going to do, and then I'll tell you the stories of the songs that I'm going to sing. I'm going to sing 3 songs. They're all pretty short. That's a 15-minute chunk, and then I'll stop. And I'll see if you have any questions, how you're feeling. If you want to talk electronics, you want to talk Bible, I love it all. And then I'll play you the 2 newest ones. Or after we talk, I'll make sure I really want to tell you the stories, because the stories of the last 2 are pretty amazing, and I want you to know those. Those 2 together are about 12 minutes. And then if we all want to go refresh CNN or AP or whatever we want to do, we can do that, or we can talk more, anything you want. This is such a delight. But really feel free while I'm playing, if you all want to keep up the chat thread, go for it, and then I can look later. I can answer any questions you have as they come up. I'm a big lover of the chat thread. I have been going to all these, live over Zoom concerts or Twitch concerts or whatever, and I love having an active chat thread. So I fully encourage you. I don't know if the YouTube folk, I think the YouTube folks can chat on the side. I'm afraid I can't see the YouTube folks, but if someone is keep peeping at that and can tell me if there's a question in the YouTube, thanks. And then, and I'll be able to see the Zoom folks. Okay, so I'll give you as quick a pitch as I can and then just get to some music making. This thing that I'm about to play for you is collectively called White Fire. It was commissioned by Experiments in Opera. I cannot sing their praises enough. It's sort of an opera collective bunch of composers who just want to make a ton of new opera happen. And they called me up while I was on vacation on the beach, and I had just finished a really big piece, and I was like, yes, nothing to do. And they called me up and they're like, do you want the opportunity of a lifetime to write a big chunk of opera? And I was like, oh man, yeah, I do. That sounds great. But I just had come off this huge project. I just wanted something small. And so that's how I decided. They're really sweet. They said, make it an opera. And I was like, well, what if it's a 1-woman voice and electronic song cycle? And they were like, sure, that's great. They said, as long as there's narrative and there's singing, they're great with it. So bless them for being wonderful people. So I had this commission for a piece, and it was 2016, and the election was happening, and I just I wanted something that made me feel fabulous about my gender. I was feeling pretty crappy about the way well, I don't want to get too political. Y'all know what I mean. I was feeling it was a weird time. It was a weird time to be a woman in America with all the political stuff that you already know is happening. So I decided to dig into Judaism, and I got really into the idea of midrash, which in Jewish practice is storytelling within and around the story that's already in the Bible. So the ancient rabbis, or from about the year 200, Common Era, said there's 2 kinds of fire in the Bible, in the Torah. There's 2 kinds of fire. There's the black fire, the written letters in black ink, and the white fire, the power and the passion between the letters and between the lines and in the margins. And I love that idea. The storytelling and the interpretation and the rethinking of these different biblical stories is this tradition of midrash, white fire. And around the 70s, a bunch of women got in on it. It was a male practice for millennia. Mostly Jews in diaspora who wanted to feel part of the community got in on the action. So since around 200 Common Era, or really 100 Common Era, you just got stories on stories on stories. And a lot of Jewish ideas and practices now are based in that storytelling as much as Bible. So I wanted to get in on the action, just like the women in the 70s said, this has been men writing for millennia. We want to start telling these stories. And these awesome feminists, mostly Americans, but some Israeli women, got in on writing their own midrash, their own stories woven around the stories of the Bible. So that's what these are that you're going to hear. I'm writing the words myself, but they're from Bible stories. The first one's going to be Rebecca. I named them after the women that I'm writing about. So Rebecca, I'm taking the time in her life when she is, I'm going to give you the unbelievably short version. She decides of her own agency that she's going to go marry Isaac, who actually is her first cousin, but don't worry about it. Is going to go marry Isaac, who's a person she's never met in a land she doesn't know. And her family gives her the agency to decide if she's going to do that. And I'm thinking, ooh, she's a teenager. She's like 13. And she makes the decision she's going to cross to faraway lands and marry someone she's never met. Then I'm going to give you Lilith. And I'm not going to say too much about Lilith because I think popular consciousness kind of has a lot of thoughts about Lilith. But again, in the break between two sets, I would love to talk about Lilith. Jewish tradition. I'm going to focus on one of the stories in the Jewish tradition about Lilith, which is that when she refused to lie under Adam, the first wife of Adam, when she refused to lie under him, but wanted to lie beside him, she was cast out of Eden. And God sends an angel to try and threaten her to come back and be subservient to Adam. And he threatens her with, every day you will bear 1,000 children, and every day they will all die. And I was writing this piece right as two of my closest friends had miscarriages, and just the combination of these women I loved in my life having miscarriages and that story of Lilith really, really resonated with me. So that's the second song. And then the third song is Miriam, and I'm taking the moment, Miriam, the sister of Moses, leading Jews through the desert after they've escaped Egypt. There's a story, there's a midrash that the Jews are starving, they're thirsty, they're going to die of thirst, and she strikes a stone, and out of this, and the power of her just womanly leadership has water spring from the stone, and all the Jewish people get to have water and are replenished and survive. The way that I'm going to tell these stories is I'll be singing. I'm no singer, but I have Reaper, and that is my instrument. So you'll hear my voice heavily, heavily processed. I have a backing track that's mostly made up of those found sounds that I talked about, a lot of recordings of bridges. I take a lot of walks in New York City and New Jersey. Lots and lots of bridges make it into those tracks. I have these MIDI triggers in front of me. They're just rubber discs that I bought on Canal Street in New York for I bought a sheet of rubber for like $5, and then I took a saw and I carved out these little circles. They're usually on poles in front of me, but this is real intimate, tiny desk style. So there's clip mics on each of these rubber discs, and when I hit them, should trigger either a sound or a change in effect or a new sections settings. So sometimes you'll hear that, sometimes you won't hear that, but yeah, that's the quick pitch of what's about to happen. Okay, so it's going to be about 15 minutes. Everyone get cozy, get a cuppa, and keep the chat alive if you feel so inclined. Okay, and now the awkward 90 seconds when I'm not going to talk. I'm just going to get all my stuff in a row. I promise lots of good stuff is happening right now. You just can't see it. This is just going to be a live Reaper session. That's all it is. All right. This is going to happen in 3, 2 and a half. 3/4. 7/8. Okay. 9/10. 11/12. Let's see. Give me a little thumbs up if you can hear.
100 my babies, 1,000 my babies died today. I will not save them. I cannot save them. I cannot save them. 1,000 my children died today. I cannot reach you. I will not reach you. I will not reach you. 1,000 my babies died today. 1,000 to the water, to the well. My children come. I hear you come. To the water, my mothers. To the water, to the well. My mothers come. I need you come. To the water, my fathers. To the water, to the well. My fathers come. I love you come. To the water, my brothers. To the water, to the well. My brothers
I hear you. Thanks.
That was really haunting and eerie and beautiful. Can't hear you now.
Yeah, hi. Sorry.
Hi. Yeah.
The audio routing makes me a little loopy with this. Thank you. I've gotten so many different adjectives with regard to this project. I love the ones you said. What was it? Haunting, eerie, and beautiful.
Mhm.
That's gonna
Yeah.
write that in my dream journal.
I was wondering, it looked like a lot of the time you were singing and we couldn't hear you, but then we heard a delayed version of that. Is that right?
Yeah, a lot of the time I dull my own live signal because I do think it's eerie. Isn't that so eerie? You you basically not hear me. I have my own gain down to like, but then I have giant delay, loud.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
decay is the actual sound that you hear.
Yeah. On top of which, there were sometimes some latency, like slowdowns and speed ups with the visuals, so that you would suddenly be like hitting the thing really, really fast with those recorders or whatever they are.
Yeah. Oh, they're just drumsticks.
They look like recorders.
Yeah. Well, that would be cool. But actually, you know what? Little kids love these. I do that because sometimes I'm in a really dark venue and I have to see these sticks. But now, like many people have said, their favorite part of watching me is just watching these little glowy things hit stuff.
Yeah.
So that's fun. Yeah, the vocal processing is banana pants. I have so many different processes on the vocals that that started me on the journey of rendering everything ahead of time because I crashed my computer reliably every time when I tried to play.
Yeah.
So I render
and
layer by layer.
The other thing is that in the last song, right towards the end, there was one moment where your unfiltered voice suddenly came through. And that was so startling.
Oh, good. Yeah, I messed that up a little bit every time, but the lyrics, which are basically, actually, I'd be curious now over Zoom. They're usually indecipherable when I perform these songs, but the lyrics
about 1,000 my children
dying.
Something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's maybe the most lyric accessibility that has happened. But in this last one, it's like a call to everyone, like Miriam's calling everybody, and she calls out the mothers and the fathers and the sisters and the brothers. And then when she gets to the sisters, I just wanted to be like, I hear you, sisters, I hear you. So I was like, that's the moment I strip away all effects, and I'm singing like, was it to the water, to the well, my sisters come, I hear you. And I just want to be like, I hear you, you are heard, and I hear you. So it's a vulnerable moment because in a lot of drier venues, if I don't have cool lighting, like I've performed this in, academic venues, and
Yeah.
without cool lighting, it's just like, I hear you. And then back to epic reverb and big drums and stuff. It can be a little weird.
The lighting was great.
Oh, thank you. These, because y'all should get these. These are, I forget, what were they, $20 or something for the set of 2? And they're just
Wow.
little LEDs, remote controllable. I could have been very spooky or minimally spooky, but yeah, I love them, and I bought them for you all to give you a bit of a show.
Speaking of the you all, we are down to 3 people besides the 2 of us.
Oh,
So I feel like, if there's more songs, now's the time to do them before everybody else has to
before
go.
everyone else goes. Okay. Okay, here we go. Last 2 are Jezebel and Dina. I won't even tell you their stories. I love their stories. Look out for their stories. I'll just say it's really involved. Or I have to tell you Dina. Dina is a daughter of Jacob. There's the 12 tribes of Jacob, or the 12 tribes of Israel, which are the sons of Jacob. But Jacob also had a daughter named Dina. And what happened to her? It's super weird. And I'll skip to the weirdo bit where Dina has sex with a prince, a neighboring prince to her family tribal compound. And 2 of her brothers decide to make the prince who wants to marry her circumcise everyone in the kingdom, in his like kingly compound. And once all the men are circumcised, then he can marry Dina. But their plan is actually to kill everybody. So once everyone's gotten drunk and circumcised each other in the village, Simon and Levi go in and kill all of them. And my song is the moment where they come back to Dina, and I'm just picturing Dina going, "You just slaughtered everybody? You just slaughtered everybody. That's weird." So it's a weird, conflicting bunch of emotions I feel when I'm writing that song.
It's like the opposite of the legendary Pink Dots song Princess Coldheart, in which the princess kills all her suitors.
Oh, wow. Well, I think that's cooler than your brother killing all the suitors. I do need your help with this, though. Do folks have smartphones?
Yeah.
Okay. So I also really love putting audio in phones. If you want to go to lainiefefferman.com/ASU, tell me what you see.
Hang on, I gotta find my phone.
Sometimes I write it down on a piece of paper to hold up for people, but I'm probably, if you're tuned in, you know how to spell my name, lainiefefferman.com/ASU. You should see a bunch of wave files, a bunch of sound files on a web page. Hoping. Yes, you do. Thank you. Okay, so this is set B that I'm about to play you, and you'll see there's hopefully like B1, B2, B3, B4. Pick your favorite number, but your phones are gonna play along with my set. My spidey senses have hopefully timed it well. I will say there's graphic language.
Any of the Bs?
Any of the Bs. Pick your favorite B. But I will tell you, if you feel squeamish in the environment that you're in with having some graphic language, don't participate in this. Because I used all of the synonyms of Jezebel. When you look up Jezebel in the thesaurus, you get some pretty intense synonyms, and that will come out of your phone. So if you feel squeamish, or if you're near, I don't know, little ones, maybe don't do it. But if
should we, for the when we listen to your tracks from your website, should we be muted or should we all hear each other?
It would be awesome if we all hear each other. I hate asking people that because I don't know what kind of environment you're in, but it would be awesome if you unmuted.
Well, I'll unmute.
Thanks. That would be super awesome. Yeah. P.S. Everyone should listen to when my album comes out. These have amazing spatialization. I worked so hard on stereo image for these. You're getting none of it because I'm just summing to mono right now. But if you're at all curious, this album's going to drop, next year sometime. There's a lot of panning. So picture a lot of panning. Okay. I will get cracking. First, you're going to hear Jezebel, and then you're going to hear Dina. It's about 12.
When do we hit play?
When I will tell you. Basically, when I hit play, you're going to hit play, but I want to get super ready. Okay. And I mute this. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, see, there's that. Okay, and there's my delay. All right. If you could, the file of your choice, if you could press play now.
Bitch. Slut. Pig. Hysterical. Witch. Dirty whore. Bitch. Cunt.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Woo! How'd the phones work?
They worked well. Yeah, it was I was hearing the word bitch from multiple directions.
Yeah, if you look up Jezebel and the Thesaurus,
I'm not
bitch,
surprised.
witch, hag, cunt, and her story is not sexual at all. Yeah, maybe I won't. It's 8:30. Maybe I won't go into depth, but
Yeah.
I love her story, and she gets a bad rap from history, and I love her. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking to us and playing all this music. And thank you to those of you who stuck around for sticking around.
Thanks.
And you can hear lots more of Lainie's music at www.lainiefefferman.com. It used to be lainietunes.com.
It did.
Remember that?
I remember that. I got a fancy PR consulting guy to tell me not to do that. So
Like you might get sued by Looney Tunes?
no, like I wouldn't get the the so-and-so commission award.
Oh, right, of
Crappity
course.
crap if I were Lainie too.
Yes, as
I
composers,
regret
we have to be
changing.
completely serious at all times.
Yes, yes. Harumph.
Yes.
Anyway. Oh, thanks for having me. This was so much fun. This got
This is
me
great. And I'm
feeling.
so glad to finally hear this piece that I've been hearing about too.
Ta-da! Well, you
Yeah.
especially. Pumped for you to hear it with stereo image because
Oh yeah,
you're the queen
I
of
do.
stereo image.
I do like panning.
Yeah.
All
Thank you
right.
so much.
Thank you, and bye. Good night, everybody.
Good night, ASU. Thanks for tuning in.
Be seeing you.